All right. So I am so excited that we have in person. I thought we were going to have to do this live from the observatory. Most of us are aware of the effects of light pollution. It affects our quality of life, it affects our wildlife, and it significantly affects astronomy. Stephen Hummel's passion is preserving the dark skies in West Texas. And you've seen from his biography there how important he has been in the area in West Texas where the McDonald Observatory is, but where the Permian Basin is, and there's a lot of oil there. And so it's a tension, a dynamic tension between the oil and the skies. And so Stephen is going to tell us what we can do to help preserve these dark skies. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Frankie. Yeah, thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, in person. It kind of worked out, meeting with the oil and gas companies while I'm here, so it worked out to be here. My name again is Stephen Hummel. I'm the Dark Skies Initiative Coordinator, so I primarily focus on West Texas. But really, as you'll see, this is really broadly applicable anywhere. Here in Houston, even where you can't see stars, you'll learn about some of the importance of dark skies. So if you have not been out to McDonald Observatory, actually let's do a show of hands. How many of you have been to McDonald Observatory? All right, we got the Observatory fan club here. Oh my goodness. Wow, that was probably more than half of you, maybe like 2/3 of you guys. Wow, all right, so well, if you haven't had the honor of being out to McDonald Observatory, we are located in far west Texas in the Davis Mountains, up at almost 7,000 feet, so we have some elevation. We've been here since the 1930s. Our first telescope there in the back, the smallest dome, was completed in 1939. And upon completion, it was the second largest telescope in the world. Now it's not even the second largest at McDonald Observatory. The one next to it is our 107-inch telescope built in the 1960s to support, partially in support of the Apollo missions. One of its famous things it did was shoot a laser at the moon to determine the distance to the moon, which is pretty cool. And then there in the foreground is our Hobby-Eberly telescope. It's currently our largest telescope and currently second largest in the world today, about 10 meters across. We measure telescopes by the size of their mirrors with which they collect light. So 10 meters across, or maybe half the room across. So all of the work we do really depends on dark skies. We do everything that under the sun in the field of astronomy, basically everything from looking for black holes to looking for signs of alien life, even very practical things like calibrating GPS systems, things you use every day. And all of this work really depends on access to a dark sky. And back in the 1930s, this was kind of taken for granted. Just build far away from the city and you should be pretty good, right? Well, as it turns out, no, not really. Today, we are the darkest of all of the observatories in the United States. We still have the darkest skies. That is our claim to fame. But every time I say that, I get a little sad because it's not like the other observatories are in my opinion, lesser or they're not trying. It's really a sorry state of affairs that the light pollution has gotten so bad, even other observatories once thought immune are suffering from it. So even though we have the darkest skies, we're not resting on our laurels, right? We are working hard to maintain those skies. That's really what my job is. When I say dark sky, though, it kind of gives you an idea that the sky is perfectly black, or you may have an image of standing out in the darkness and not being able to see your hand in front of your face. But that's not really true, because truly dark skies are actually pretty bright. This here is an image of myself, on kind of a shorter exposure, not super long. And behind me in the background is the planet Venus. And under a truly dark sky, Venus is bright enough to cast a shadow. Right? You can actually see in the foreground beneath my feet and behind that pillar, there is the shadow being cast from Venus. So if you give your eyes time, it takes a while, 20, 30 minutes or more, you can kind of find your way around just by starlight, not even the moon, right? Even when the moon isn't up. For most of Earth's history, this was night. right? This was what darkness meant. This is the level of light nocturnal animals have adapted to live under very, very small amounts of light, but still enough to navigate by. Right? When you think of like an owl or a hawk moth, they could be hundreds of times more sensitive to light than our own eyes. And so this is plenty of light for them. So this is real darkness, and until really 150-ish years ago, with the invention of kind of modern electricity and then street lights and so forth, this was really a relatively easy experience to have. But nowadays, more than 80% of Americans and over 90% of Texans live under too much light pollution, too bright of a sky to see or appreciate the Milky Way, which is really sad. Most of the visitors who come to the observatory below the age of 18 have never seen the Milky Way. They really don't even understand what it's supposed to look like or what to even expect. Their expectations are what they see in pictures and media, which aren't always realistic. They sometimes think it's something you have to have a telescope to see. But no, you just look up, right? So a lot of people actually come to McDonald Observatory for the telescopes, but leave remembering just the plain old Mark I eyeball experience of the night sky. That's, I think, what actually leaves the most lasting impact. So we are roughly around between a 1 and a 3, maybe I would say 2, 2.5 on this scale. Perfect dark sky sites are incredibly rare. There's only a handful left on land, really, aside from the oceans. But most people live in a 7, 8, or a 9 on this scale. And here is a map of the United States, lower 48 at least. And this is showing you kind of sky darkness. And at first you're like, oh wow, the cities are really bright. Yeah, maybe no surprise cities are bright. Maybe you're not, hopefully it's not shocking to learn that Houston is a pretty bright place, right? Relative to other places. But the longer you study this map, the more you realize, oh gee, it's really not just cities, is it? Because even rural areas, even far from cities, they're experiencing light pollution too. Their skies aren't perfectly dark either. And there's even some big blobs that don't line up with cities. For example, if you look up in North Dakota, there's a big blob that's almost as bright as Chicago, arguably brighter. Is there a city bigger than Chicago in North Dakota? No, there's not. Yeah, I can answer that one for you. No. Anyone know what that is? Oil fields, yeah, the oil field, yeah. So that's the Bakken oil field up there, and then in West Texas we have the Permian Basin, and then south of San Antonio, there on the bottom is the Eagle Ford Shale. And then you have some offshore stuff too. Some of these other blobs are from mines, some of them are from commercial agriculture, greenhouses, other things, right? So it's no longer just cities. Increasingly, rural areas are losing their night sky, even at a faster rate than cities. And it's more appreciable there because the baseline is darkness, so any new light really stands out. So this isn't just an urban problem, it's really everywhere that the night sky is getting harder and harder to find. In fact, there are only 6 places left in the lower 48 of the US you can go and have the real deal, authentic night sky experience, meaning you can look in any direction and not see any glow from any city at all. Those 6 places are eastern Montana and the non-touristy kind of flat part of the state, not the pretty part. Central Idaho and the Sawtooth Range, really beautiful. Eastern Oregon and northern Nevada out there in the desert, again, pretty empty area. Central Nevada, where they test the weapons, so don't go there, right? Not a good idea. South central Utah around Canyonlands National Park. And lastly, my personal favorite, that little tip around Big Bend National Park and then in northern Mexico across the river in Chihuahua and Coahuila. So those are the 6 places left you can go and experience a true night sky. And part of my focus is not just to protect McDonald Observatory, which is just north of that place in Big Bend, but check that last little refuge of that experience. So why, right? Because it may shock you to learn that this rate of change is actually far greater than the rate at which we're building things or the rate of population growth. Light pollution is getting worse at a rate of about 10% per year. That's from 2011 to 2022 is when that study period was. So from 2011 to 2022, the doubling rate was actually in 8 years because it compounds on itself. That's really fast. We are not adding 10% more people as a country every year. That would be insane, right? Our cities are growing, but they're not growing outwards by 10% every year. Again, that would be crazy. So why is it growing so fast? Well, there's a few reasons why. One of the big reasons is how we see light, how we as a culture value light, and also the technology around light has changed considerably. But I'm going to give you all a curse now. I'm sorry in advance, right? I have the curse. Frankie has the curse. Kiri in the back has the curse. You're going to notice all the bad lights from here on out, right? All right, everywhere you go, you're going to, oh, that's a bad one. Oh, that one's a good one. Oh, no. You can't help it, right? You kind of unconsciously start judging people. You got to hold yourself back sometimes. The light you see here on the right, this is really the problem. It's not all lights that are bad. It's certain kinds of lights that are really driving this growth. In particular, lights that shine upward into the sky. Going straight from the source directly to the sky. Doesn't keep you any safer, doesn't help you see any better. Half the light in this fixture is just pure waste, straight into the sky. The other half down here is useful. So on average, most cities, maybe 30 to 50% of all the light produced just goes straight into the sky. It depends on the city, but it could be a tremendous amount of light, which is a tremendous amount of energy as well, right? Because it takes energy to power lights. But here's the tricky thing, right? It's actually our pursuit of energy savings which is kind of making the problem worse in a way. Because it used to be to have lights on all the time, it's going to cost you a lot, right? You probably learned growing up, hey, you turn that light when you leave the room, right? Those light bulbs cost real money to keep powered on. But as lighting has become more efficient, as a society, we tend to think less carefully about using it. It's cheap, right? Now I don't have to think so carefully about where my lights are, which ones are on all the time. I can leave them on all the time. Why not? It's pennies a night. So LEDs, lighting emitting diodes, they came onto the scene maybe 15, 20 years ago, and they promised to be the kind of the greener option, the more eco-friendly because they use less energy, therefore you can afford more light. I actually have a background in economics, and I have to use that somehow, right? In economics, we call this Jevons paradox. The more efficient you are at utilizing a resource, the more of that resource you use. So the pursuit of efficiency in itself doesn't actually always result in using less things, right? This came actually back around the 1800s in the era of coal, when someone was trying to develop a more efficient steam engine powered by coal to replace other forms of power, and it turns out, well, everyone just used more coal. So that's kind of how it came about. So LEDs are the same thing, right? As we switch to LEDs, cities tend to be brighter, we tend to use more light, but there's another part of this equation too. LEDs often are more white or blue in color. Not necessarily, they don't have to be. You can get them any kind you want. But most often they tend to be a kind of bright daylight white. And that color, that blue-white color, is the other part of the equation because it actually scatters more in the atmosphere. So this is a false color image, but this is a study done from the National Park Service up in Chittenden County in Washington, northern Washington, really beautiful area near North Cascades National Park. And they looked at a city before and after it switched to LEDs. And one of the things the utility company told the city council was that your sky is going to get darker because unlike those old lights, actually these are fully shielded. They're all aimed down, so none of the light goes directly into the sky. So problem solved, right? No. It actually got 50% worse because they were brighter and they had more blue. And the more blue it is, the more it scatters in the atmosphere. For the same reason our sky is blue in the daytime. Right? So blue light scatters more, whether it's from the sun or an artificial light, and therefore it washes out the stars more powerfully than, say, a green or a red light does. So this effect is happening all over the world, right? We're more blue light and more of it than ever before is really why we're losing the sky at a rapid pace. But let's back up for a moment, because maybe you're thinking, well, you know, that's all well and good, you know, it's so sad for astronomers, but I like light, right? You know, what's the big deal? Well, there's a lot of things to worry about here, actually. There's a lot of reasons why this issue matters. One is, I already mentioned, energy and cost, right? We waste a tremendous amount of energy shining it up into the sky, not helping anybody. Also, us as scientists, we like a nice dark sky so we can study the cosmos and do other neat things. But there's a kind of a broader cultural effect here, too. Astronomy, as I like to say, is the oldest science. Ever since people have had eyes to look up with, they've been reaching some kind of understanding about their place in the universe. What it means to them, well, it depends on who you ask. But everyone throughout human history, until recently, has had this experience of looking up, seeing something kind of beyond real comprehension, and reaching some kind of conclusion from that. And people are not having that anymore. I've met professional astronomers who've never seen the Milky Way. Right? It's something they study in books, it's something they study, on a computer, but they don't have that real experience. And to me, that's why I got into astronomy, is I went to McDonald Observatory as a kid. I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, and I saw the Milky Way, and I saw through a telescope what I now know was the Sombrero Galaxy. That's what we call it. I didn't know that at the time. I was too young. I didn't understand what I was seeing, but I knew it was bigger than me, right? And it left a really lasting impression on me. And it makes me really sad to think about the fact that future generations may never have that experience, right? And I think we lose something as a society when we don't have that experience, or what astronauts sometimes call the overview effect, where you see the world for its place in the grander scheme of things. And again, it's a deeply personal experience, but I think it's something everyone should have. Wildlife, right? I'm going to talk a lot more about wildlife in a moment, but rest assured, there's a lot of impacts to wildlife, as well as your health. And this is one thing I think it surprises a lot of people, is the human health impacts. Because, well, there's a lot of things to worry about, right? A lot of issues in the world, a lot of environmental considerations, microplastics, we've got to worry about that now. There's climate change, and all these other things that you hear are harming your health. And somehow light has kind of gone under the radar. Until roughly around the past 10 years, scientists have really picked up on the health and wildlife impacts that light has. And that it really is, the more we learn, a true pollutant, like other pollutants. That it really can be toxic in some ways. So this was a big moment for me. This is a journal Science, which if you're in science is like kind of one of the most famous ones, right? And having a whole special issue on light pollution a few years ago, I was like, oh, okay, we've made it. Wow, this has gone from a little niche issue to increasingly a mainstream issue. So there's a lot of considerations. But one of the things that we're learning is that from a health and safety standpoint, just having more light doesn't necessarily make you safer, right? And a lot of people think more light equals more visibility equals more safety. No, actually it turns out you can have too much light. So there's been studies by the Illuminating Engineering Society that have found that really what matters isn't the amount of light, it's how you distribute it. It's what is lit. And having smooth transitions between differently lit zones is often more important than how much light is actually there overall. Right? Most workplace accidents, most traffic accidents where light is a concern happen when you're going from a really brightly lit place to a darkly lit area. It's that transition. So if you have too much light in one area, your eye adjusts to the intensity of that source, and then you can't see very well in the shadows. Right? So this pursuit of more light it ends up actually kind of being self-defeating. It's less light, but in the right places. That's what makes you safe. Crime, too. There's been a lot of scientific studies on crime. And, it turns out, whatever conclusion you want to reach, you can find a study to prove you right. Right? Great, yeah. They're all correct, yeah? Because they've got to study. No, that's not how it works, right? So there's really no consensus that more light equals less crime either. There are all kinds of conflicting results. But there have been some studies that kind of a pattern is that it really is very situational. Certain types of crimes, like property crimes or vehicle break-ins, can actually get worse in brightly lit areas because people can see what's in your car to steal. They can see if there's any other witnesses. They can see where the cameras are, right? It's a double-edged sword. You may see the attacker, but they see you as well and anyone around you who could help. So it's really more about other aspects of security that really matter then. Lighting doesn't really make a difference if someone is determined to commit a crime either, right? It's not going to stop them. You may be surprised to learn that most property crimes occur in daytime hours, when most people are off at work or at school or traveling or something, rather than at night where you look really suspicious if you walk in. And most violent crimes occur indoors at the hands of someone you know. I'm just kidding, yeah. That's true. Now, I'm not saying that
that's why we carry guns.
That's why you carry guns, yeah. Well, now, I'm not saying go walk down darkly lit alleyways in the city, right? Stephen said it's safe, so no, right? Yeah, they use common sense. But I think the issue of lighting and crime is often overblown. You can have good lighting that enhances security, but oftentimes it doesn't really. I think it's more about projecting a feeling of security than providing true security. And in certain times, lighting can actually make the issue worse, or you have really harsh glare where you can't see sometimes what's right there in front of you because you can't see what's behind the light source. All right, so it doesn't really necessarily keep us safer, right? The astronomers don't like it, and here's the real issue. It's hurting us too, right? We evolved under a cycle of day and night. All life on Earth really did, right? We had day and we had night. Day was bright, night was dark. No longer is that really, can we really assume that to be the case with artificial light as bright as it is now. So excessive exposure to artificial light at night, whether indoors or outdoors, has been linked to circadian rhythm disruptions. Okay, maybe that's not too surprising, right? That's your sleep cycle, sleep disorders, depression, diabetes, even breast and prostate cancers. That was actually one of the earliest discoveries. They found that in shift workers working at hospitals overnight. Overnight nurses were found to have a higher rate of cancer than it was believed to be because they're under artificial light almost all the time. But they found that blind women had lower rates of breast cancer. No, they weren't receiving light all the time. So what was really going on here is several things, right? There's the basic pathway is that your blue light in particular is suppressing the generation of melatonin, which you can think of in simple terms as the hormone that makes you sleepy. But it may actually do a lot more than just that. It may be involved in all sorts of regulatory functions in your body. Now, blue light in particular suppresses it because why?
That's what the sun spits out.
Yeah, the sky is blue, right? So until artificial light, the only time you would really be exposed to a lot of blue light is the daytime, right? That's the only time that really blue light can be found naturally. So that's why we respond so strongly to it when we're bombarded with it all the time. And when I say blue, to be clear, I don't mean it has to actually look blue. I just mean white also is a blend of all colors, and a portion of that is blue. But even red light does suppress melatonin a little bit, just not as much. But you may see products advertised as sleep bulbs, which is kind of interesting. It's a new fad to have certain kinds of lighting that filters out blue light entirely. But if those are in your bedroom, right, the green and red still does suppress it, just not as much. So it's best to sleep in total darkness. Personally, I can't sleep anymore unless I'm in complete pitch darkness. I sleep so much better. Going back a step, heart disease as well has been linked, and insect-borne diseases. What do you think's going on there?
Confused bugs.
Confused bugs, yeah. If you're around lights, especially in like a tropical area, those lights are going to attract all the insects, and suddenly all the insects are hanging out where all the people are. They're all congregating in one space, so they are more likely to come in contact with you, and those insects, because they're congregating, are more likely to come in contact with each other as well and spread that disease within their own population. So because of all these issues, back in 2016, 10 years ago, the American Medical Association adopted guidance that basically said, hey, all those nice bright LEDs all those cities are installing, those are a public health risk. And that did not make them too popular among lighting manufacturers. Yeah, they were they kind of got a lot of flack for that at the time, but since then they've been pretty well vindicated that they were kind of right, and that they were really kind of early to the punch in identifying this as a public health risk. But as cities continue to get brighter, more and more evidence is mounting that there are real public health issues here. And if it affects us, well, you better believe it affects the rest of the environment as well. We are not even nocturnal, right? So we're not even that sensitive to light compared to some nocturnal species are. But light heavily influences all kinds of things in nature. There's three big broad categories. Photoperiod disruption, kind of your sense of time or season. Confusion or distraction, think of those insects around a light. Our habitat loss or degradation, where certain species need darkness to survive. That's what they've adapted to. So in kind of broad terms, light is imperative for life, right? Without life on Earth, without light, there would be no life on Earth. And so it's not that light is bad. It's just there's a time and a place. But also, light is literally food and energy for many plants. So when you think of a greenhouse or something, sometimes they may use that to their benefit, artificially stimulating growth of plants. But most plants don't benefit from having light all the time. That can really throw them off and disrupt their growth cycles. But also consider that cycles of light and dark have been perhaps the most reliable clock in Earth's history, right? For billions of years, there had the cycle of the sun coming up and going down, and also to a secondary effect, the moon as well, rising and setting in its cycle, has been perhaps the most reliable way for life on Earth to gauge what season it is, when they should be preparing for winter, when they should be preparing for spring, and so on. And overall, light is perhaps the most reliable source of information. That's how we primarily see and experience the world, but many other animals do as well. So it's no surprise when you look at it this way that light is so impactful in so many ways. I'm going to give some very specific examples now. So anyone know what kind of tree this is? I wrote it down there, I guess. Yeah. Cottonwoods, everywhere. Texans love cottonwoods. They're kind of rare out west, but we do have a few, and we're really proud of them because having big trees out in West Texas is kind of rare. So we like our cottonwoods. Cottonwoods use the duration of light to determine the season. Long days, that must be summer. Short days must be winter. Let's say you put a street light right over that tree. It doesn't know what season it is. You may sometimes see this in the fall. Certain trees may hold on to their leaves longer if they're close to a street light. Or if they're further away, those may still be on kind of a normal schedule. Same thing in the spring, or vice versa. In the spring, the ones near a light source may start to bud and flower earlier than the ones further away. This has been believed to be, according to a recent study, lengthening the duration of allergy season by a lot, doubling the duration of it. It's a big effect, yeah, and it's worse in urban areas because of light. Birds. Most migratory birds migrate at night. Most migratory birds migrate at night because many of them are small, like little songbirds. Many of the pretty ones do so that they have some cover from predators. Those beautiful eagles and red-tailed hawks and all the other raptors, they have great vision, but not at night. They're pretty lousy at night. So darkness is great cover for migratory birds. But also, night provides them with some navigational cues. They can sometimes navigate using the stars even Sometimes we believe identifying the rotation of the Earth and which way is north by the patterns of the stars moving in the sky as the night goes on. Pretty incredible. Side note, how we learned that is my favorite little story. Some researchers back in the 60s got a bunch of painted buntings and other buntings in a planetarium, grew them up in a planetarium, and then when migration season began and when they wanted to fly off, they would orient themselves to the stars in the planetarium and try to fly in that direction. Yeah, pretty cool. But yeah, they may also use polarized light as well, which we introduce a lot of artificially polarized light in the environment, which confuses them. So this, unfortunately, is kind of causing some issues around major cities and brightly lit areas. So one of the seminal papers on this topic was focused on the tribute in light, which you may know better as the 9/11 Memorial in New York City. So if you haven't seen this, you probably have, but there's two enormous pillars of light, two massive spotlights where the Twin Towers stood. And they only turn on typically on September 11th every year, or the week of September 11th. So giant pillars of light. It's a really powerful image. Unfortunately, it confuses a lot of birds. Up to 150,000 birds in a single night can be drawn to this art installation. And what they're doing is they're just circling in the light. They're not catching bugs in the light like a lot of people expect. They're actually, all of them are up pretty high enough that weather radar can pick them up. And they'll even show up on radar as this big ball of something hovering over that area. Unfortunately, many of those birds die every night. It's the sad truth. Many of them exhaust themselves to death, just flying around in circles. Their sense of direction is confused, or they collide with structures. They collide with window reflections or other surfaces. The good news is this is no longer a critical issue because they actually installed a sensor that detects on radar if there's too many birds in one spot, it automatically turns the beams off. And if you watch it on radar, it's really fascinating because you can actually just see them disperse in just a minute or two. Suddenly they all fly away. So this is a really a powerful image, but thanks to the research here, we now better understand the kind of the broader scale impacts of light, because it's not just bright installations, it's really cities as a whole that have this effect. These are all birds that collided with a single structure in Chicago. It's actually a convention center, McCormick Place, which is not a skyscraper. If you've ever been to McCormick Place, it's only about 5 stories tall. Last time I gave this talk, I showed this picture. The man who was the lighting designer for that building was in the audience.
What did he have to say about it?
He said, "I'm sorry," but he knew about it. He was in my talk to learn, you know. But yeah, this is, again, all birds that collided with the structure, mostly a glass facade building. Glass can be an issue in the daytime for birds, but at night too, it can be especially confusing because the light will draw them in and then they'll collide with the structure. So they've actually fixed this one too as well. This building is no longer quite so lethal to birds. They changed the lighting and installed some kind of protective film over the glass to make it more visible. But yeah, I took this picture. This is actually out in the middle of nowhere, and this is one gas station. Just out in the middle of nowhere, it's one lone gas station, and actually all the lights are shielded. It wasn't very bright. But I took a long exposure because you can see this bird in this path circling around. And they'll do that for hours. They'll just circle around. A lot of people don't notice it because they're too high up to really tell, especially in a dark night. It can be really hard to pick them out against the sky. But yeah, we believe millions of birds are doing this all the time during migration season, especially. Insects, we mentioned them too. Here's another depressing fact. I promise this talk is not entirely depressing. I'm going to end on a positive note. But first I'm going to beat it into you how depressing this issue is that I deal with. But yeah, when cities switch to daylight white LEDs, the common ones, a study in the UK found that the populations of caterpillars and moths dropped by 47%, almost half, just by switching the kind of street light. What's going on there? Well, all those caterpillars, they congregate around the lit bushes under the lamps, and then they're easy prey for the other bugs and birds to come pick them out. They can see them. So they're being over-predated upon. So there's a lot of dynamics here, right? Fireflies. How many of you grew up seeing fireflies everywhere? Yeah? If you grew up anywhere on the kind of eastern half of the US, Texas or east, yeah, you probably saw them everywhere, right? I've had kids come up to me and ask if fireflies are real. Yeah, which is a little funny, a little sad, right? Yeah, they think they're kind of like a fairy tale creature because they've never seen them. Fireflies, of course, they need darkness to communicate. They need darkness for kind of different reasons than other insects. Like, they're not actually attracted to the light so much. They tend to be pretty light shy. They kind of avoid lit areas. But they need darkness to see and communicate and find each other. And one study found that actually, in some cases, even when the fireflies can find each other, because they recognize the flashes of another firefly, they may hook up, right? They get together, and then they just sit there if they're in a brightly lit area and wait. They're waiting for it to get dark before they mate. But it never gets dark, so they just sit there. And they never mate. Yeah, they only do it in the dark, right? So yeah, fireflies, these are actually fireflies we have out in West Texas. We have a critically threatened species of firefly that only lives up in the Davis Mountains. They're really rare. So I took these photos here. They're pretty cool, but they like to hang out around the observatory. And one night, one flew into the telescope while a guest was looking through it. And I didn't notice it fly in, and then the guest was like, "Is someone like taking a flash photo?" I'm like, "Wait, no one's doing that." Like, "Is Mars supposed to be flashing green?" I'm like, "What are you talking? What are you talking about?" And I look in there, and sure enough, there's just this big, the firefly was out of focus, but it's just the whole light of it. Yeah, it's really bright.
It's the Martians.
It's the Martians. Yeah, they're trying to communicate. All right, so I mentioned this is going to take a turn for the better, right? Unlike most environmental issues, this is really easy to fix because light doesn't persist in the environment. It doesn't hang around after you flip the switch off. It just goes away. And all you really have to do to fix it or change out some light bulbs. We don't have to live in darkness even. Just thinking more carefully about light can go a really long way. So there's really 5 things to think about. The first is the purpose of the light. Do you need the light at all? Could you do without it? If so, great, don't even have a light. If you do need the light, target the light. Shield it so it's only shining at the area you actually need it to be lit. Not into your neighbor's window, not across the street, to your other house, not into the sky. Target the light at the area you want to see. Low level, only the intensity appropriate for the task, right? Don't overlight. More light isn't necessarily better, just what's appropriate for you to see safely. Amber tone, instead of super blue rich or white, a little bit more on the amber end of the spectrum. Goes a long way. Better for environment, better for the sky, better for your health as well. And then if you don't need the light, turn it off or put it on a motion detector or some other means to control the light so it's only on when it needs to be. That's it, right? This isn't rocket science. We don't need new technology. We don't need to spend billions of dollars trying to come up with a solution. We know how to do it. And a lot of cities are doing it. In fact, huge areas are doing it. It's a global movement of people in entire cities converting light. So I'll talk about a few examples in West Texas and some other places. I'm going to start kind of small scale. So this is a hotel in Fort Davis, Texas, near us. And there on the before picture, you can see that it's really bright, really glaring bulbs. But those are hotel rooms just to the side. And the groundskeeper came over and said, when we talked to him, he was like, "Yeah, sometimes I do my rounds in the morning, and I find all these light bulbs unscrewed on the ground." Because the guests would get so frustrated, they couldn't find the switch, they just went out and did it themselves. So we replaced them with smaller bulbs shielded inside the fixture, so it's fully shielded. A little more amber, lower intensity. I think it looks a little better. You can still see what you need to, and people seem to be sleeping better too. Here is a commercial greenhouse near us. the loading bay. They don't really have a whole lot going on at night. So they were fine with switching out some lights to be a little dimmer. But we have some really bright glaring lights, some really harsh shadows before. We swapped them out to be more amber, better shielded, and lower intensity only on the places they actually need it. That was a huge issue. And if you notice actually in the before, there's a little speck in the sky. That's a bird. No birds on afterward. We don't see them anymore. This is a liquor store in Marfa, Texas. And the owner asked me, he's like, I need some light, but I want it to be as minimal impact as possible. Like, what color would have the least impact? And I said, well, red, not thinking they'd actually do it. But they did. It's a vibe, right? It's a look to have pure red lighting. But it does actually have the least impact of all the colors if you can do it. It also helps preserve your dark adaptation, which is why observatories like it. It doesn't attract too many pests and other insects around their plants, because there's also a plant shop too. All right, so those are some smaller scale businesses, but even TxDOT, even the highway department has gotten on board. This is a highway interchange on the left between I-10 and I-20. There's no safe place for me to pull over in the intersection there, so I took another one with the same light at a smaller intersection here on the right. It's amber, it's shielded, it's aimed down. It's still plenty bright enough to see everything you need. The truckers haven't complained to me yet, so I think we're doing okay. They tend to be a little, apparently according to TxDOT, they get all these complaints from truckers when lights are out, and nobody complained. But yeah, it's still energy efficient LEDs, but they're a more amber color, right? So we can do it right. Even large scale industry, like the oil and gas industry is getting on board. So this is a project we worked on, this one was actually in New Mexico, but we had a before and after here of a site we retrofitted. And you can see in this drone photo from above, you can see the individual sources of light in that photo from above. So you know some of that light, a lot of it actually, is going into the sky. So we replaced it with shielded ones, less intense. They actually got just the same amount of light on the equipment as they had before, but with 60% energy savings. Right? That's money. That equated actually in this facility to be about $4,800 a year in energy costs just for that one site. Yeah, you can kind of see the gears start turning, right, for large operators like this. It can really improve energy efficiency and efficiency without sacrificing or even improving safety and visibility. Here's another oil and gas example. This is a big facility in southern Reeves County in Balmorhea, Texas. And this one is pretty good. They have all shielded, all amber, only on the areas that they actually need it. And in certain areas, they don't have light if they don't think they need it. And even entire cities are getting on board, right? We're doing a lot of work in West Texas and the Big Bend region. That's because we're at focus. But it isn't just us, right? The largest city I think, in the world that really does this 100% with a full commitment to this concept is Flagstaff, Arizona, which is about 100,000 people. And they have Walmarts and McDonald's and all the familiar chains Americans are used to. But you could see the Milky Way in the middle of town, right? And I've done it. Like there's this, right behind here is a city park, behind those trees. You can stand in the middle of the city and see the Milky Way horizon to horizon. It's really incredible, right? And you still have streetlights, you still have businesses, you still have normal everyday life. Right? You don't have to choose one or the other.
Isn't there an observatory there?
There is another observatory, Lowell Observatory, there as well. Yeah, so kind of similar to McDonald. But when I say there, I mean like they're in town, right? They're right in Flagstaff, so that it's a little more critical. But yeah, it was kind of weird going there for the first time. It's like this bizarro world, like this other dimension where everything is lit in a night sky friendly way. It was really like I nerded out a lot about the lighting. Yeah, there's a Chick-fil-A. Again, the things you see in everyday life in a city, but lit in a dark sky compliant way. Here's a gas station. It's a little brighter under the canopy, but still not too bad. And of course, national parks too. They're getting on board. This is Grand Canyon National Park. They retrofitted several thousand fixtures across the park to be dark sky compliant to protect their visitor experience. And they get a lot of visitors every year at the north of I believe 7 or 8 million.
Is that the north side?
This is the south side. North side It's equally well lit, but well, it was, I guess.
Yeah, burned down.
Burned down recently, unfortunately. I did get to go there. I was one of the last people to see it before it burned down. It's really sad, but anyway. So yeah, national parks too. Big Bend National Park as well, of course, famous dark sky park. So lots of effort there. All right, so hopefully you now understand both what bad lighting looks like and what good lighting looks like, right? I think one of the things about this topic that's hardest to communicate is, like, people get what the problem is. It's harder to get across what the solution is, right? And hopefully that kind of gives you a sense of, like, here's how you do it right? Because there is a way to do it right. You can have light and use it responsibly and preserve dark skies. We don't have to just give up lighting. So here's how you can help as well. I mentioned earlier towards the start of this talk that light pollution is getting worse at a rate of about 10% per year. How we know that is tens of thousands of people every year around the world reporting what stars they can see from home. And it's actually really tough to track, especially within a city or urban area, how light pollution is changing, because there's so many sources. And from a satellite view from above, it's just too cluttered. It just gets really complicated. So the best way to do it is looking up and counting how many stars you can see. And if you can't see any, tell me that. That's exactly what I want to know. If you can only see Venus and the moon, hey, that's a data point I can use. So this is what that website is. If you scan that link on your phone or just search globe at night, there's a little form you could fill out to report how many stars you can see in the sky. And of course, encouraging your friends, neighbors, business owners, and other people to adopt these practices. It really goes a long way. The main problem here is not that people hate the night sky. It's not that people are so attached to lights that they don't want to give them up, maybe a few. I think the main issue here is just awareness. Most people just don't think about it. They don't know about the scale of the issue or the impacts to human health or wildlife and other things. Really, the only way to win that battle is just sharing that information. Did you know that light pollution harms health? Did you know it harms wildlife? And talking about it goes a long way. And then talking about the solutions. So that's it. That's how you can help using these lighting practices at your own home business, or telling someone you know, telling your grandkids to do it, whatever works, spreading the awareness. With that, I will conclude. There's some more resources, and I'm happy to take questions.
All right. We'll ask Rich to, if you raise your hand. Oh, thank you. I was testing you. Okay, you passed. Rich, if you raise your hand, Rich will run with the microphone. You've got one over here, Rich.
Go get him, Rich. What causes the Marfa lights?
What causes the Marfa light? Probably my number one most asked question. It depends on who you asked. If you're not familiar with what the Marfa lights are, near Marfa, Texas, there's supposedly little lights you can see on the horizon that kind of dance around, and some people believe they have perhaps supernatural properties. Aliens. Yeah, whatever you want to believe. If you ask the Tourism Bureau of Marfa, the visitor center there, they'll say aliens. Yeah, something. Personally, all I have seen are car headlights, which is not a very exciting answer, but that's all I can truthfully report. Yeah.
Hey, we got some volunteers.
I have had the privilege of spending a couple of Thanksgivings down on the river in Big Bend, which is the best dark sky I've ever seen in my life. And I guess my concern is, I've kind of written everybody I can think of, but who might be the best person to approach politically to say, preserve these dark skies? Mm-hmm. Don't build things that require light.
Yeah. So I don't want to get too political because I am a state employee, but I will say I have had direct communications with Customs and Border Protection on that exact subject. What they are telling me, I mean, it's just what they're telling me, is there is no plans for lighting in the national park or other areas. What they are going to do in certain areas for border security is install infrared illuminators, which are not visible to the human eye or most wildlife. And the only lighting would be around ports of entry. So Presidio Ojinaga Port may get some additional lighting. But that would be shielded. It would be aimed down.
Good.
It would not be amber, but it would be shielded. So,
That makes me think
Yeah.
I'm talking to you.
As far as the health issues with not getting enough darkness, what about children who never are in the dark because parents put night lights in with them from the time they're born until they're 16 years old or whatever, and they never are in darkness?
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing?
yeah, that is believed to be a health concern. Absolutely. You are actually, babies are not born with a circadian rhythm. Like, they don't come out of the womb with one. They kind of develop one. And if you remember, some of y'all, if you've raised kids, you'll maybe know early on they cry and sleep kind of whenever, right? It's not necessarily day or night. And the regular cycle of day and night is believed to help create that rhythm. So there are believed to be some health consequences to having like even night lights on all the time. We do believe that even relatively small amounts of light can have an effect. It does scale, of course, the more light, the more effect, but even relatively minor amounts can have an influence on behavior. Yeah, I don't know exactly. This is a tricky one too, because there's a psychological effect too, right? Where they want to have some light. So I don't know. I don't have a perfect answer on how to balance that, but talk to a pediatrician, I guess. Yeah.
So, Stephen, would you have a red night light?
Yeah, like red, it would be preferable if you want to have a light at night. Yeah, like my bedroom, I have them. I have like a red bulb and a normal bulb for the daytime, and so I just have muscle memory, and I reach for the red one at night if I do need like something to find my way to a bathroom or something like that. So that would help. Yeah, it's better than the alternative for sure.
With the red light, I have a red light that I use for healing, supposedly. Is that actually going to happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, there's like red light therapy, which is
Yep.
kind of different than, yeah, I mean, there may be some marginal, I'm not a doctor, so I can't comment for sure, but it is believed that, yeah, that can have a little bit of benefit, but I don't know enough to say exactly what. But yeah, for illumination, like I think what that therapy, you do need typically you have it almost like directly on you, and it's a lot brighter than,
yeah.
it's pretty bright. So don't expect a normal red light bulb to be be bright enough to have those effects.
My daughter had a chair fall on her toes, and two of them were crushed pretty badly. The podiatrist said, don't think we're going to be able to save them, but we'll try, and he taped them and everything. The only thing, when she went back at the end, he said, what are you doing differently? Because he was sure they were goners. But she said she had bought a little handheld red light and put it on her foot a couple of times a day. He said, it's amazing. I've never seen a toe heal like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I can't comment on if it's medically effective, but yeah, it's an interesting story. Yeah.
We got one back here.
Thank you for being here. I'm afraid that we here at Eagles Trace are not good stewards of your programs. For any of you who wonder why I say that, if you go at night to the east end of Redbud, between Redbud and Amarillo Terrace, for some reason, our folks climbed that light pole, which was compatible with all the light poles in the area, and they put up 2 huge LED lights to light that small patch of grass and make it look like a high school football field. I kept waiting for some exciting development to go there to justify the need for that light, but there is none. It's just a huge, very bright area. Thank you.
Yeah.
Please.
You can have the curse.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice?
Well, I'm just so pleased and happy that you could come and join us in person, Stephen. This is an important message for us, and the health consequences can't be ignored. So hopefully we'll all be going to that QR code and night, and what is it in?
Globe at Night is the
Globe
first
at
one.
Night.
And
Globe at Night.
darksky.org also has more information.
Great.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.